Hello and welcome to my experiment I am calling office hours. It's just another opportunity for me to get online and kind of give more mortgage information. Going to try and do it Mondays. Now, Mondays are sometimes a hard day because of the weekend with stuff that comes in, but we'll try and hit that. Time might fluctuate. Right now, doing around 2 o'clock. Uh, with this, the idea is just to, again, provide more mortgage information. I'll probably have a slightly structured uh, setup for the show, but if comments or questions come in, which is the ideal, is that if people comment or question, I'll be able to answer that. So kind of like when you had a professor in college and they had the open hours where they can come and ask questions and go over stuff on potential tests and whatnot. That's kind of what this is for the mortgage side of things. So kind of what we're going to talk about with that was the introduction. I wanted to talk about the bond market and kind of what's going on with rates and how that's moving, and how kind of Ukraine and the Russia situation is affecting that. Go through different industry news. There's a couple of different things that have happened at the beginning of the year that are affecting things going forward here in 2022. Talk about the Evolution Real Estate podcast that I do. So it's another online virtual kind of like another realtor friend of mine, Scott Ebel, and I do, where we talk about market stuff and we go in more detail on the actual happenings of Minneapolis and then talk about certain topics there. And then just kind of go over quickly the cost of waiting, just kind of a small example. Just getting into the bond market. So we'll just look at this. Now, you can kind of see how the U.S. Treasury now it mortgage rates don't necessarily follow the Treasury like line by line kind of thing, but it's definitely something to monitor because they somewhat seem to correlate with each other. So you can see on this chart, we know that Ukraine or Russia had invaded Ukraine right here. So we know it happened on the 24th, and you can see the change down once the markets open when that happened. And then they kind of recovered back to kind of roughly where they were. And then news came that Russia was actually like really invading and then that they were actually going to start doing stuff. So then you can see the reaction of how that happened there. And then it became more of like a stationary thing where they were doing that, but they weren't really sure what was going on. And again, dropped again when there was more news of that they were really pushing and bringing more troops in and all of that. And then as this has gone on, and inflation woes and all of the other stuff in the world have pushed forward, you can kind of see the trend slowly start to continue to push up. So it kind of continued this trend line where we were up high below, and then it's coming back to that. And now you can see just in the last few days and just even today being 314, I mean, look at this jump here. We got a huge spike in the bond market, which if there's a spike in the bond market, more than likely your rates are going up. And rates did go up this morning and seemingly are continuing to do so today. And you can just see how much of a jump this was here today. So something to keep in mind if you're looking to lock or uh, thinking about buying a house, the rates continue seemingly going up. Word is that rates should cap out around 4.5 at the end of the year, but that's still to be determined. They just kind of keep going up at the moment. You would think that eventually this will subside, but at the moment everything just kind of seemingly is going up. So if you're out there and you have a house and you're questioning whether to lock, it's probably a good idea to do so. Unless you have a really long lock, then sometimes it makes more sense to float the market because the longer your lock is, the more expensive it is. And then if you can get closer, then that's cheaper and then there's a chance for it to drop down. So industry news, just wanted to go through quick thing with like condos. So if you're looking at buying a condo, so there's townhomes and condos. The difference between the two is townhomes, you own the land it sits on, condos you do not. So with condos, you have to have what's called a condo questionnaire. So the association fills out a form, and the form just kind of gets, talks about like the details of who's living there, whether they're owner occupied or rentals or second homes, what kind of the financials and everything look like. And now they've added a new twist to these condo questionnaires and added an addendum. So if you remember that condo that collapsed in Florida last year, a tragic event, but what it did was it sent ripples throughout the mortgage industry, and now this condo questionnaire addendum has been added to this. So that addendum essentially just asks all about the structural integrity of the property. So a lot of the associations are choosing not to fill this out because they don't want to be held liable for potential answers that show on there. So we're having to do some kind of like back around kind of different things to try and get those answers, so that way we can get a condo clear to close. So if you're looking at buying a condo in the future, just know that there might be some extra complications, because when you buy a condo, you as a borrower, when you get pre-approved and it goes through underwriting, you have to get approved. In the same way, a condo has to get approved. So you're kind of working up that system. So you could actually get approved, clear to close, but the condo might not, and then you can't close on that property. So just know that that will and potentially be a hurdle if you're looking to buy a condo. So Evolution Real Estate Podcast, Scott and I do this. We kind of changed the days a few times on how we're trying to structure this. At the moment, right now, we're looking at doing it on Thursdays. We typically do our podcast around 3:30. We stream on YouTube, Facebook, and the whole point of that is to go through the Minnesota regional, the Minneapolis area, go through the stats on house supply and go through all that kind of stuff. So we're really talking about more intimate area, real estate information. Then we just talk about certain topics. Obviously that's another chance to kind of get to know us a little bit on a personal level, but we go through some additional conversations and information that you might find helpful. Now, the final thing I want to talk about today is the cost of waiting. So let's go to the whiteboard here. So just looking at this, I just did a quick little scenario where, let's see. There we go. So John and Mary Smith, they're looking at buying at 123 ABC Street. You can see that up here. So they're looking at buying at 123 ABC Street. This is a conventional fixed rate purchase. So this is just strictly a hypothetical example. If they had a $300,000 house and they did 3% down, $291 is their loan amount. You can see their total payment is about $1,950, and that includes their principal and interest, their homeowner's insurance, their PMI, and their property taxes. So you can see that in their total payment there. So the key to this is when we look at what's their interest rate in this example. So right now it's at 4.25, and their payments at that $1,948, $1,950. If they chose to wait and interest rates went up or what have you, just wanted to show a difference of what interest rates do. Same numbers and everything. Now we're looking at 4.75 for the interest rate. Look at the payment. $2,036. So you can see that almost went up like $80 just strictly because of an interest rate. Now, $80 might not be a big deal to you, but take that $80 and take that times the year and then times 10 years. That can add up. The other place where it can add up is in your amortization. So this is I left out the actual calculator part of it, but I just put together these numbers. So it's the same principal and interest. You'll see this $1,438 up here. Let's get a different color. So we'll see the principal and interest, the $1,432. We see that $1,432. So it's the same principal and interest. And then we have, let's go blue. Then we have the $1,517. Oh, well, I'm colorblind, so that's purple. But $1,517. And $1,517. So it's the same deal. But look at the difference in overall interest. Now this is over the life of the loan, but the interest rate or the total interest paid is quite substantial when you look at that. So now most people don't hit 30 years when they're doing their full mortgage. They don't hit that end. But the idea is that you'll be paying roughly 80 more bucks a month. Plus, if you end up staying in that, or if it turns into an investment property, that kind of difference can be a big factor in what makes sense and what doesn't. So something to keep in mind if you're looking at interest rates and deciding whether and what to do. Same idea can be said on whether you're buying points or not. So another thing to keep in mind is if buying points makes sense. So that's something that you would go through once you kind of have a signed purchase agreement, because that's when you can lock a loan. But you can always kind of game plan that ahead of time. But the rates constantly move, as we talked about with that bond market. So it's a little bit of a crapshoot in that sense. If you have any questions, please, either message me. You can call me, text me, email me, or just message me on Facebook here or any of the platforms. I'd be happy to answer that. So kind of going forward, a lot of this will be kind of certain Q&As or certain topics to go through. But some of the stuff I'll touch on will be like the bond market and whatnot. Appreciate you stopping by.